everybody. Welcome into the Orange Zone podcast, the award-winning Orange Zone podcast. We're actually picking up an award for it tomorrow, so that's exciting.
Yeah.
That's Ashley Wenskoski. This is former SU running back and Super Bowl champion James Mungro. We have Rachel Culver. On the producer mic, I'm Samantha Croston. We are going to get into Holy Cross, which is the upcoming game, but we have a couple things we'd like to discuss about the Stanford loss and some of the things we heard in the press conference afterward. How are we feeling, guys? Mungro, we haven't heard from you since last week.
Yeah, it's been an all right week. Unfortunately, we took that L last week. It was a tough game. We didn't play very well, and when you don't play very well, you lose. And last week we gave a lot of credit to the offensive line, and I guess you probably jinxed us, Samantha, by talking about the whole line.
Sure, it was me.
I'm superstitious, so
I know.
We'll get to that point a little bit later. But yeah, it was a tough loss. They fought hard at the end, but you got to play a complete game, and the running game was not there when you're negative 26 yards at halftime. That's not a good feeling to have.
Yeah, interesting that you brought up the offensive line first, because that's exactly where I was going to go too, which I think fans-wise, right, it was the 4th and 9 heard around the world, the conversion. Everybody knew about that at the end, but really it just wasn't a good game. Offensively, defensively, you didn't really feel like they ever clicked on offense, and this was the proof for Syracuse that as much as Kyle McCord has turned this around and turned this season, Kyle McCord can't do it all himself.
You're exactly right.
And he can't do it all when the offensive line is not protecting him and he doesn't have a run game. He can't do it all.
He certainly cannot. You mentioned the last play, so we'll talk about it a little because Coach Fran Brown, of course, had some things to say about it. In the press conference, he said he caught the ball. I put Clarence Lewis in a situation. I'm not going to go through the whole coverage of it. It's 4th and 9. I wish I would have done something different to not have the kid in that situation to be able to make a play. It is on me as the head coach. I messed it up. And that's what he said. And of course, there was some debate about that coverage and what should have happened. What did you think watching that last play? Did you think that Io Manor should have been guarded differently?
Yeah, he should have been guarded. He should have been guarded differently. I know Coach would like to take that play back, but unfortunately can't do that. I do need coverage. I mean, he needed some help over top, and there was no help over top, and that's what happens when you're in man coverage.
Yeah, and everybody knew that the ball was going Io Manor, right? Preseason All-ACC, one of the best wide receivers
the broadcasters
in the conference
knew.
now, right?
Yeah.
Which is an adjustment because Stanford's just joining the ACC, but everybody knew that was going to be the guy. I also think some blame falls on, right, coverage, but you saw Justin Barron. If you rewatch the tape of that play, Justin Barron in that safety rover role is kind of like just jogging up. I mean, I don't know. He wasn't assigned him, right, man coverage, but he didn't do anything to break it up either.
Yeah,
You gotta have more awareness that you need to have, especially in that type of that situation of the game. It's do or die, right there it is, and obviously we didn't get the job done.
And it really was, right? This is a situation where Stanford was not close enough to attempt a field goal. That was the play that locked it in. And then, of course, that kicker was ice cold. And I think most people really had the feeling that even though they got pushed 5 yards back, that field goal was going in, and it was right down the middle.
Yeah.
But
sure
all that
was.
to say, I understand where everyone is coming from, that blame could fall on a few different people. But here's the other thing where I just feel like we need to kind of throw a little credit where it's due. That was a beautiful throw. I don't actually think Lewis did a bad job covering the guy, considering the situation. I thought Io Manor made a really good catch, and it was a really good throw. It was the perfect play.
It was, but, it's just that bitter taste in your mouth that, it came down to that. And, they had the whole game to play. The first half was just really terrible. The first half was bad. And, Kyle, like you said, he can't do it all. And he did the best he could. His passing rating was down. The other quarterback for Stanford, his passing rating was terrible. So he was making moves with his legs and everything else. And it just so happens he was hitting the targets when he had to hit them at the time.
You left with the feeling of, at least I did, when they took the lead at the end of that game when it was 24-23 with like 3 minutes left, I was at least thinking they would have been lucky to escape that game with a win because they didn't play well in the first half. Like you said, they didn't play well for a bit of the second half. I don't think Kyle McCord had a bad game. I mean, by his standards, certainly maybe it was. Still threw for over 300 yards through the air, tried to do what he could, but he had no run game. He had no protection, and he was running for his life the entire time. Just to take a minute, take a beat on the offensive line, because I think they're an area that really impressed us the first 2 weeks. Kyle McCord was sacked twice total over the first 2 weeks, as we've said. He was sacked 4 times in this game.
By halftime.
Yes, by halftime.
By halftime.
He had no protection. The running backs had no protection. I think they started moving things around on the offensive line. They took out Big Spoon for some of it. Jacob Bradford and Savion Washington had some of the worst power football focused run blocking grades that we've seen throughout this season. The offensive line is going to need to put it together against conference opponents.
Not to mention there were a lot of penalties again.
Yeah, what was it?
7.
7, yeah, 7. I didn't, 7 penalties.
Did you write those notes down?
I did. I put
That
7.
is literally so adorable.
Yes,
Can you
yes.
hold that up? Look, he brought in his little.
One note.
Why can't we show them
Wait,
the
I didn't even
notes?
realize you were
Private.
serious.
He has
I thought
his
that was
own
like a bit.
notes.
That's
No,
so
I got my little notes
Aw.
right here. Yeah,
That's so
I come
cute.
prepared.
That is cute.
But listen, so this is this. I'm superstitious, okay? And I wanted to get this on the air really quick because I told, talk about tickets. I messed up last week of getting tickets to go to the game last week. So therefore, I was not at the game in person, but I was at my house with big screen outside, wife and brother watching the game with me as well. And at the time, we're losing. And I'm having a couple beverages, and
Couple
by
beverages.
halftime, but I mean, the beverages,
Few
the game,
beverages.
the beverages dictated how the game was going.
I'm sure.
How many I had.
Oh.
So by halftime, I was pretty upset. Okay, at halftime, I was pretty upset, and I looked over at my wife, and my wife just had a blue shirt on, and I'm like, "Why don't you have an orange shirt on? Can you please go upstairs and change your shirt?" And I looked over at my brother, and I said, "You have nothing orange on it at all." So I went in the house and got an orange, a tangerine that was orange, and brought it out and put it in his pocket.
I know where this
Yo.
is going. I know where it's going.
My wife went upstairs to put her shirt on, and this is like during halftime, taking her time, whatever, like that. And next thing I know, we score, and as she's walking out the house with a different, Syracuse shirt on, a Syracuse football shirt on, I was very happy.
There you go.
I was very happy, and then as the game was going on, I asked her, "Could you please go back upstairs and change your shirt again?"
Get that shirt off. Take that off.
I'm sorry, I'm superstitious.
Your poor wife.
How many times did she change her shirt?
It was twice.
He's like, it was 4 times. It was
Out of
I mean,
curiosity,
I'm
was it back
trying.
to blue?
No, it's a different orange. Like, the shade of orange was off a
man.
little bit. I just didn't.
Wait, that's actually an iconic story. Not once, but twice.
So yeah, I'm very superstitious, and I always wear something orange every time Syracuse plays. If I'm there, if I'm there in person, or if I'm not there in person, I always have some type of orange on somewhere on my body.
I like it.
I gotta respect that. I have no problem
I
with
have
a couple
pride.
superstitions. Listen, we all have our own thing, but ultimately she could have changed her shirt 3 times. They still lost the game.
She could have
tried.
changed your shirt 6 times. They're still going to lose.
But it wasn't because you didn't try. And granted, you guys both mentioned it. I think it's an important point. Yes, the last play could have went differently, but there were so many other aspects to this game where you felt like it wasn't the best version of Syracuse that we've seen.
Yes.
I want to take a beat on Kyle McCord because we haven't completely discussed it yet. He finished with a 64% completion percentage, 339 yards, and 2 touchdowns. He also had 2 interceptions, one of which resulted in a pick 6. Most people would agree that that wasn't his fault. But it was this sort of Josh Allen style of play. It wasn't really the kind of play we were used to seeing from him. I thought there were some positives and some negatives to that.
Yeah, I mean, he was in a different situation this week than he was in the past 2 weeks. So with saying that, he went out there and he performed. I thought he performed decent, but I felt like, the way he performed was dictated on the way the offensive line was doing. So he had to do different things, do different things because there was breakdowns up front of him. But all in all, he's still one of the best quarterbacks in the country. And once they get their stuff together, hopefully sooner than later, he'll be back on track.
I said this after the game. It's nice to see Kyle McCord get the first rushing touchdown of his career. Great to see that he has the ability to do that. At the same time, if Kyle McCord feels as though he has to run the ball in for a touchdown, you probably have some bigger problems. With everything that we've discussed, how many options this offense has, I think to me that was a signal and a sign that he kind of felt like nothing was working. All right, I'm going to just do it myself.
Yeah, we've said this in the past. It felt like it was running based on a need.
Need base.
Yeah, and
Need-based run.
And we were talking about the penalties before previously too as well. Is that one penalty that they had on Gaston. On the way I saw that on the punt, when the guy caught the punt and he ran off, then fell down. From his angle, to his credit, he couldn't see the guy's his knee hit the ground because his knees were. He couldn't see it visually. So it looks like, on his angle, it looks like his knees didn't hit, and then he hit the guy for a 15-yard penalty. Yeah, you got to be a little bit smarter like that, but, with that happens sometimes. But they need to get him started too as well. I mean, I think he only caught 2 passes during that whole game.
2 catches for 12 yards.
Yeah, so we need to get him going because he's one of our dominant receivers.
Yeah, Fran Brown spoke on that yesterday. He said, look, Arondé Gadsden is going to be double teamed, triple teamed. He said, if I was the coach of the other team, I would do that too. It's a matter of we still got to find a way to get him the ball.
1,000%. The other thing I wanted to mention that you guys both discussed, but is the running backs and the running back situation. LaQuint Allen and Yasin Willis combined for just 34 rushing yards all game. What did you guys think about what you saw from that aspect of the game?
I need offensive linemen. I'm the first to say, you cannot run the ball without offensive linemen blocking for you. And offensive line did not have a good day at all. They just didn't. And when they don't have a good day, your running back's not going to have a good day. And, you got to give credit to the offensive linemen when you have a good day. And when you don't have a good day, you have to tell them, to step it up.
Not only that, but you talked about the penalties. There was a few, right, like that Gadsden one that seems a little unavoidable. But the offensive line had a couple of really costly holding penalties in there. Got to clean that up.
No, absolutely. Here's the other thing, just to keep it general for a second. If you are, for the Syracuse fans and listeners who are watching this podcast, or maybe even for some of the listeners that root for other teams, should fans be concerned here?
No,
was this just one mistake, or was this indicative of a bigger theme? I'm just curious. I want to know what you think.
There should be no concern at all. I mean, they're going to get their stuff together. From the previous years, yes, I would have said it's time to jump ship. But, there's a new coaching staff, new philosophy, new theme up there. And the guys, as you saw before, the first 2 games is good. The last game, they still were in it. They had an opportunity to win the game still. Okay, as playing as bad as they played. So they're right there. I mean, I feel really comfortable with them. I feel very good for them. And I feel like there's going to be a lot more positive things going to happen, and coach will correct the issues and get the boys back together.
I believe that I said this going into this season at some point, and I didn't predict it for this one, right? We all predicted that they would handily take care of Stanford, but I said there was bound to be a game this year under a first-year head coach, regardless of it's Fran Brown and how much we love him and all that. There's bound to be a game under a first-year head coach that you just feel like got away from you, right? A loss that you feel like they should not have lost. It is what it is. I mean, whether you or not you want to say it came down to a coaching decision at the end with the coverage, I don't know if I'd put it solely on that. As we talked about, there was a lot of issues throughout the game that led to them losing that game. But there was bound to be a loss that you kind of felt like got away from you, was unexpected, and you just got to move on. I think I didn't love the reaction from Syracuse fans after the game, to be honest with you. I saw a lot of negativity on social media because, to your point, look, I know it hurts. I know it stings, right? We had grand delusions of 4-0 going into UNLV.
Not grand delusion.
Grand delusions. I know it hurts and I know it stings, but you got to give the guy a shot. I mean, it's his 3rd game as a head coach ever. There's bound to be some things to clean up. I saw someone say this on Twitter. Rome wasn't built in a day. I think we all had huge expectations going into this season that it was just going to be, firing away on all cylinders immediately, and that's just not how it works.
But I still believe that we're going to have a great season. I mean, it's one loss. I mean, and this is where your character is checked. Losing a close game, and how do they bounce back against Holy Cross? And that's going to be something good to see, and hopefully it's positive. If they go against Holy Cross and totally see the same type of dominance on the defensive side, how Stanford dominated our offense line, then there's not to hit the panic button, but the panic button is there, visible, is very visible at the time. But so they need to go out against Holy Cross, and Samantha get to that part, but and put some numbers up.
Absolutely. And you can afford a loss like that in the beginning of the year more than you can at the end of the year. Kyle McCord said it after the game. The ACC is still wide open, right? Everything that they want is still in front of them as of right now. It's just a matter of fixing it, putting this behind you, and cleaning things up. And Holy Cross, no one better than Holy Cross to have a little get-right game this week.
Well, I need people to understand, though, the fact that Mungro would even say that and say no and still feel very firm in his belief that this team has a lot of great things ahead of him. Like, that's not always,
definitely.
but like last year, you might have been the first person to but I'm saying that matters, that you feel this way this year compared to last year.
Yeah, last year's feeling and this year is completely different. I mean, last year it was like, when is the ship going to sink? like there's a hole in the ship. It's going to sink, but when?
Right.
You
Yep.
know, we're gonna put a little putty on it. We're gonna, try to keep it afloat. But in reality,
But it's going down, baby.
It's going
It's going
down.
down.
It's going down. It's going down. And-
Car crash if you
It's the
can't turn
Titanic, and you couldn't save everyone. You couldn't.
but yeah, yeah, I almost slipped up on that one. But again, Fran had those guys together. Kyle had the offensive line talking to him and talk positive to him. Not going to beat him up and say, listen, this is done and over with. Let's focus on what's ahead of us. Like, we can't do anything about Stanford, but moving on, we have a lot more tough opponents coming up. And, the only thing that stinks about it is we gave Stanford their first ACC win. That's, for myself, that stinks, but it is what it is.
Celebrated.
It stings.
Yeah, and they traveled all the way from California to play here, and they won in New York, so that kind of pissed me off as well. But besides that, they played very hard. They played hard, and you got to give credit where credit's due. They won.
Yeah, but one good takeaway that I will take away from it to put a more positive spin on things. Fran Brown said this yesterday. The Stanford quarterback said it. As much as I didn't like the fans on social media were getting a little toxic after that loss, but the fans in the dome, they stayed. They were in it. It was a packed house down to that final play. Sure, they were disappointed, but it was loud in there. Ashton Daniels said after the game it was one of the toughest places he's ever played, and Fran Brown said he was happy with it yesterday. He said the fans came out. It's a sellout again this weekend against Holy Cross, so it's going to be loud in there again. The fans were invested in that game from start to finish.
There's no doubt about it. You could even see, like Coach Brown said, make sure you come again this week. He was disappointed that he wasn't able to get the W for the fans, but he said he thought they did an amazing job. Very much so appreciated the support, which sort of leads us to looking ahead. This is going to be Coach Brown's first sellout game at Syracuse ever against Holy Cross. And Holy Cross has a 1-3 record right now. They won over Bryant. They lost to Rhode Island, UNH, and Yale. These teams last met in 2019, so it's been a long time since they've seen them. But Ashley and I know, a bit about this team because they're a Patriot League team. So they've gone up against Colgate. They have mostly dominated in that sense. Holy Cross has won a title in the Patriot League in 2020, 2021, 2022, and 2023 they were a co-champion. This was a team that has had a lot of recent success, but they are also under a first-year head coach.
Yeah, Holy Cross, Syracuse's only FCS opponent of the season. So like I said, coming at a great time when you're trying to clean some things up off of this loss. Look, we learned last week that you can't take anyone for granted. We did learn that lesson. But Holy Cross, like you mentioned, under a first-year coach, they lost Bob Chesney to JMU. Bob Chesney, a guy, by the way, who was in a lot of the conversations about who Syracuse's next head coach was going to be before Fran Brown. So Holy Cross is in a transitional year. They're 1-3 right now. Look, should Syracuse be able to handle them easy? Yeah, but that's what we said last week, too.
I didn't think Syracuse was going to be honest, I didn't think Syracuse was going to smoke Stanford. I thought it would be a tough game, but I didn't think it would be so much dominant the way it was played. Now, when you say smoke, when I say smoke, I'm thinking, 30 and above points. That's being smoked. Last night's Bills game.
Smoked. Certified smoked.
Got smoked.
Ooh, go Bills, by the way.
Go Bills. But no, I think with Holy Cross, Syracuse definitely need to put up at least about 35 points to get their confidence back.
And you know what? I think they really need to establish the run game more than anything, like we've been talking about. We know Kyle McCord can do it through the air, but one-dimensional offenses are easier to beat. Then they really need to bring that run game in, I think, moving forward into conference play.
I absolutely agree. This past week, Holy Cross fell to Yale, 38-31. Quarterback Joe Pasansky threw for 279 yards and a score. They also have this running back who you have to keep your eyes on. His name is Jaden Clairvaux. He did most of the work on the ground, 17 carries for 49 yards and 3 touchdowns. Holy Cross lost an important piece for them. All-American senior running back Jordan Fuller to a season-ending injury, and that is why JC, as they call him, has stepped up into this role. So it's someone who you want to keep an eye on. Again, 3 touchdowns last game. This is someone to be on the lookout for.
And 3 touchdowns on the ground, right?
Correct.
We've seen Syracuse try to establish that run defense. That's certainly something that they're going to have to work at again this week.
And I think, though, our defensive line definitely will be geared up this week to do some damage. And they should do some damage. They should be more powerful, more physical, more stronger than Holy Cross's offensive line. So I think the defense will dominate this week.
Looking at Syracuse this week, I have a question for you. What position group not off, but like specific position group do you want to see the most improvement from?
I know what he's going to say.
Go ahead and say it, Samantha.
Offensive line.
Yeah, offensive line.
All right. Well, that was the obvious answer. I was looking to see if you'd say it.
I just know he's going to say that.
Well, yeah, because right now that's the what's lacking on the offensive side. We have all the pieces and stuff like that. You don't see the running backs and wide receivers fumbling and dropping the balls that much. So it all like they say, it all starts up front. All starts up front. So they'll get their stuff together. I mean, I'm very confident in Fran's coaching staff. They'll get the guys together.
One in the trenches, baby. What about for you besides offensive line?
Besides offensive line, I mean, I don't think the defense has been perfect, right? We saw them hold on third down in that game a few times. Obviously, they could not when it mattered the most at the end. I think the defensive line and the holding, stopping the run is still a little bit of a concern without Marlowe Wax. You have some guys shifting around. The depth chart looked a little bit different this week. I believe Justin Barron was listed at middle linebacker, which he has not been. He's been at that safety rover star position. So they're still trying to, kind of just figure that out and piece that together. Marlowe should be now, this would be the 4th week of his recovery. So we're past halfway, almost past halfway, because they said it was going to be about 6 weeks for him. And I keep going back to it, but they could really use him. I mean, he was their guy. He is their defensive piece that I think they will miss until he returns.
There is not one doubt about it. Additionally, the defensive line only had 1 sack across 4 quarters in the game against Stanford, so I hear where you're coming from with that. Culver, anything we missed that you want to add, and then we're going to hit some predictions?
Let's see here. I would say in terms of position groups that I'd like to see more out of, I think definitely the tight ends is one that we touched on with Gadsden, but also Dan Villari. I mean, we obviously from that Stanford game are going to remember him for that route that he ran that ended with that pick 6 when he didn't turn around. Miscommunication on both ends. You really can't put too much blame on either party, but obviously I think we've seen Dan Villari do really big things. Obviously that was under a different offense, different schemes. But I would love to see both of them start to work in unison a little bit more and finding a little bit more of a rhythm in terms of their style of play.
Yeah, I agree with you completely on Villari and just on the tight ends in general, right? Because coming into this year, we were actually talking a lot about how the tight ends room is really deep. You have Rondé Gadsden, you have Dan Villari, you have Jamie Tremble, a freshman who people are excited about, but you even have guys like David Clement and Max Meng that Fran Brown always talks about that he wants to get more involved in this offense. So, yes, I would agree that the tight ends could be doing a bit more.
And the only way to get the tight end of the ball is if you have the guys up front blocking.
Correct.
Yep.
It all trickles down from there.
Yes, it does.
It's prediction time, baby. Who's ready to go?
I'll go first. I want to go first.
All right, if you're ready.
I would like to
He's gotta
overstep you
score.
because every single time I look at yours, you go before me, and I feel like, we think similar.
We do. So, honestly, I don't have mine ready to go. So say yours, and I'll try and go around. And I was looking up just to see if I could get the odds right now on
Let's
it.
say like 45-13.
45-13.
You know, Mungro,
That's nice.
I would love if they put up 45.
That's nice.
That would really make my Saturday.
They can do it.
I'm going to go 38. I said that last week, but we'll go back to the 38. 38 to 10.
Sam, you ready? You want me to go?
I'm going to go like 42.
Oh, see, and I knew she was going to go in the 40s. I knew she was going to go in the 40s.
Are we going to fight about this every
just
week?
knew
Are we
she
no?
was
Are we
gonna go in the 40s.
opponents
That
or
might
are we
be a
teammates?
tussle, folks.
Are we opponents or teammates? You let me know.
That's why I went first. For all the fans out there. Sorry.
We will discuss this offline. 42-17.
Okay.
I'm going to go 41-16.
Okay.
Okay.
You know,
All
we
right.
had a little, by the way, I don't know if anybody knows what Scoregami is, but it's this account that like keeps track of really weird football scores. What a weird football score 26-24 was. Not Scoregami, has happened before, but quite the score.
No, it truly is a great account. It essentially tells you if the score has never happened before and people just go crazy over a scoregami.
Scoregami, baby.
Whoever thought of that, what a winning idea. All right, well, we'll see what happens. Anyone else have any final thoughts they want to say? And then we'll get out of here and we'll see you all next week.
My final thought, which is not revolutionary, is just that this kind of is the last one for Syracuse to clean up, right? After this, you go to UNLV, you go to NC State, you got a bye week, then you got Pittsburgh. You get into conference play, and UNLV, which is not an opponent to sneeze at all, ranked in some polls this week, in the coaches poll. So this is the last game for them to get the kinks out, really work through it, and figure out what their identity is going to be moving forward.
They're in a great position. I mean, they really are. I mean, 2-1. Everybody could, moan and be upset about it, but guess what? It's done over with. Let's get to the next game, and next game is Holy Cross, so let's get a W.
One game does not tell the whole season. Thank you so much, everybody, for sticking with us. If the microphone wobbling on the table annoyed you as much as it did me, we will try and fix that for you next week.
Sorry.
Otherwise, we will see you after the live game and also back here on Wednesday. Thanks so much for joining us.
Bye.